voiceamerica.com.
Welcome to Crime Prevention 101 with host Susan Bartelstone. We're so happy you've joined us this weekend. Over the next hour, you'll learn the tips, tricks, and vital information that'll help you keep yourself confident and safe. Now, here's the host of Crime Prevention 101, Susan Bartelstone.
Hello, and hello again out there, everybody. Welcome to Crime Prevention 101. This is indeed Susan Bartelstone talking with you today in this beautiful, beautiful day. And today I'm going to be continuing with the theme of healing from violence or abuse or trauma with a non-traditional method. And my guest today is author Lisa Lockwood, who healed from her battle scars by a series of challenging life choices. We're talking physical abuse by her father, emotionally abused by her first husband. She charted a very unique path to regaining her mental health by going from beauty pageant contestant to soldier to undercover narcotics detective and finally to SWAT Team cop. And she's even got another reinvention of herself going on right now. Her book is called Undercover Angel, From Beauty Queen to SWAT Team, and it's the story of how she found her inner warrior and reinvented herself to a place of happiness, self-confidence, and inner peace. And it's a very unusual story. Now, before I introduce you to Lisa, just a little quick crime prevention thing that somebody emailed me. What do I do if someone is chasing me down the street? So I just want to go out, give a couple of things that you can do in that scenario if you're walking. And the first thing that you want to do if you're being followed or being chased, outright chased, you want to yell to attract attention, just in case somebody might be around or someone might be in a home that can look out and call the police for you. And the best thing to yell is something like, call the police, I'm being attacked, or leave me alone, or get away from me, or anything like that. You never want to yell help. I don't like to have people yell fire. I think that you want to yell something that tells bystanders what to do in order to help you. So that's my theory on that. Break a window might be something you could do to attract attention if you're in a desperate situation, if you see somebody that's behind that window, and that will attract their attention. Something like setting off a car alarm. If you can kick the bumper of the car, sometimes that will set off a car alarm, and if you see an expensive car, they're more likely to have an alarm. Running, of course, is an option if there's a store, but you want to run someplace. You want to run to a store or a bar or, hopefully a police station or fire department, a building with a doorman, a shopping strip, a bus stop, anywhere where there's likely to be people. If you're not a marathon runner, you don't want to set off running a mile to something a mile away. That's not going to be such a great idea. If you can find an object, something that you can use as a shield, like a car, that you can just keep running around, keep that object between you and that person. Tables inside area, anything that you can keep between you and that person and keep running around that person, or you can duck under that object like a car. Some of them you can get under, not all of them. The other thing, of course, I like to tell people, carry a canister of pepper spray. It's legal in all 50 states, and I've got a tip sheet on using defense sprays on my DearSafetySolutions.com website. Now, I'm going to be posting this tip sheet with all the tips on it, what to do if someone's chasing you, on my Dear Safety Solutions website. So it'll be there for you. And thank you so much for asking me about this question. Now, I'd like to introduce my guest, Lisa Lockwood. Now, in addition to the physical abuse and the abusive marriage, she has also overcome the obstacles of gender discrimination and being accepted as a confident woman doing a man's job. And let me tell you, I've got firsthand experience with that. I know what she went through. She now lives in Chicago and Montreal with her husband, Rock Thomas, and his 3 children, and she's living that life of peace and happiness she talks about. In her book, she reveals her story of going from victim to victor. We're going to be talking about that. And she now calls herself a master of reinvention, and she's doing reinvention seminars and life coaching for others who may have similar obstacles in life to overcome. Now, on her website, and I'm paraphrasing this a little bit, she says, I wrote my story to inspire others by showing them a unique transformation from welfare kid and a victim of domestic violence, from a beauty pageant contestant to a soldier, an undercover detective and SWAT cop, and finally back into the skin in which I was meant to live, a loving, adventurous, nurturing, driven, and passionate lady who just happens to know how to storm a crack house at a moment's notice. So I think that's a pretty handy skill to have, actually. So, Lisa, welcome to Crime Prevention 101.
Thank you so much, Susan. I'm very happy to be here today.
Now, Lisa, I have to tell you that I really related to your story because I've had a pretty non-traditional background myself.
Yeah.
And I know how setting about challenges for yourself really helps. And I actually got beaten up by a boyfriend that I was trying to dump, and that led me to study karate, which I was often the only woman in the class when I was there.
Yes.
And I did actually fight off a rapist a few years after my study with my karate skills. I also worked as a security guard, which I know you did as well. And while doing that, I had a flasher arrested. I broke up fights. I mean, I know what you're talking about.
Absolutely. And congratulations, by the way.
Thank you. And that's one of the reasons I really wanted to have you on this show, because I totally to relate to being that woman in trying to break that ground down and in those men dominated areas. Now,
yes.
Let's talk a little bit about the book, and let's go back to the beginning a little bit. Let's start with your childhood and how the roots for this came about.
Absolutely. I grew up in a family of 7, and we were on welfare, and I had a father who just happened to believe in corporal punishment, and the way that showed up was every Saturday, all 7 of us were beaten, either with a stick, an electrical cord, or a belt, and it was just part of the growing up program. I remember that as early as about 9 years old, and it was pretty consistent until about 12. So he just thought that this is the best way to keep all of us in line was to whip us every week. So that's how he was raised, and he felt he needed to instill that into his household as well. As it turned out later on, I think he realized that wasn't the root because each child came out differently. Some extremely rebellious. 3 of my sisters became teenage mothers. And, the cycle of welfare continued. 5 of my siblings dropped out of high school. So out of 7 kids, only 2 of us graduated, the oldest and then myself. And even with that, my last year, my senior year of high school, I ended up working practically a full-time job just to put myself through school because my parents weren't in a position to pay for it. It wasn't high on their list because they just felt, the other ones had dropped out and some of them had gotten jobs and waitressing. So it was a matter of me having my own personal drive to get an education to know that I'd be able to break free from that environment.
That's so true. The corporal punishment, we would now call this child abuse. I mean,
yes.
there's no and there's no predicting how you're going to come out from that. It can make you or it can break you, and that's one of the things I loved about your story because it was an important factor in what was making you, not breaking you.
Right.
And it was in high school or shortly after that the beauty contestant pageant thing came around.
And I've got to tell you, Susan, it's not anything that I had really aspired for. I mean, I watched pageants as a child, but I never in a million years thought I would be able to compete. And the only reason that I did is because my mother entered me without me knowing. She saw that I was excelling in school. She did want me to do well. She filled out an application, sent in a photo and a biography, and I received a phone call one day that I was accepted to compete. And believe me, that was the biggest news that our family could ever receive, to have something like that happen to us. And then I went ahead and I did the best that I could. One of the things that I believe that I use now as one of the greatest examples of pulling through a situation is a principle called acting as if. I pretended as if I belonged in the environment. I kind of modeled the other girls. I watched what they did and followed along because I didn't want anybody to know that I came from a welfare family. I was on welfare until I was 18 years old. I competed in the pageant when I was 18. So I just needed to kind of exude the presence that they were. And all being said, when it was finished, I placed 25th place out of 205 girls.
Wow, that's fantastic.
Thank you.
And what I picked up from that, too, is this may have been one of the first things that you did that showed you that there was courage inside of you, because you said as if you didn't know what you were doing, but you said, hey, I'm doing it.
Yes.
Showed you that there were options other than what you might have thought you had for yourself. And when I introduced you, I said, you created your healing by challenges.
Yes.
And this may have been the very first challenge that at least from what I gathered from the book, that started you on your later path.
It was definitely a self-esteem builder, knowing that, okay, so I used this. I pretended as if I belonged, and I had kind of that leap of faith and a little bit of courage in order for me to even compete, because I knew that I didn't have the wealth, I didn't have the training, I didn't know how to model, walk a runway, apply my makeup, interview in front of a panel of professionals. I didn't have all of that going for me, and I really needed to wing it. So having the result, not winning was not the important thing. The fact that I was there was it. So it did build my esteem.
Well, that's courage. That's what we call courage. And I talk a lot about, in my programs, I talk about finding your inner warrior. And this may have been one incident where you were getting in touch with that inner warrior, because you said, I'm doing it. Whatever it is, smiling, walking, whatever I'm doing, whatever I got to do, I'm doing it. That's an extremely important thing, finding that inner warrior.
It so is.
Now, it was a short while after the beauty pageant that you got married. And I know we're coming up on our break. So let's hold that thought. When we come back, let's talk about the marriage and what happened there. So you, everyone out there, my listeners, my fanboys, stay tuned.
News, opinion, your voice counts. Call toll-free 1-866-472-5787. 1-866-472-5787. VoiceAmerica.com. After more than 17 years' experience teaching safety skills to thousands of women and men, crime prevention and personal safety expert Susan Bartelstone concluded that by thinking and responding quickly, ideally within 20 seconds, potentially violent criminal encounters can be prevented. Using techniques from many different disciplines and illustrated by 60 real-life examples and success stories, Susan shows how it's done in her new book, Think Fast and Prevent a Violent Crime: How to Respond to Danger in 20 Seconds or Less. Check out www.fightsafe.com for more information. You'll also find information there on Susan's upcoming Crime Prevention 101 personal safety teleseminars. Think fast, talk fast, fight smart, which stress the many opportunities you have to deter or defuse a criminal encounter and how to use your brains instead of your muscles in a fight. Look for the new book information or sign up for Susan Bartelstone's personal safety seminars at www.fightsafe.com today.
Adding fractions is nothing.
For real?
Look, these are denominators. You multiply this one so that it's the same as that, then you add them up.
Man, that's easy.
Charles Bennett dreamed of returning to the old neighborhood as a teacher, but without money for college, only half of his dream came true. He's back in the old neighborhood.
Well, enough math. I gotta deliver these sandwiches.
Please support the United Negro College Fund. A mind is a terrible thing to waste. A message from the UNCF and the Ad Council.
Have you ever thought about having your own internet talk show? Well, if you said yes, then click About Us. Then click Be a Host to get more information. Or just call Jeff Spinard at 480-294-6417.
Say that again?
480-294-6417. VoiceAmerica.com.
You're listening to Crime Prevention 101 with Susan Bartelstone. We invite you to share your stories, tips, or suggestions for topics you'd like us to cover, and Susan will address some of these on future shows. Send your story or idea to solutions@fightsafe.com. That email address again is solutions@fightsafe.com. Now back to Crime Prevention 101 with Susan Bartelstone.
And welcome back, everybody. Yes, this is indeed Crime Prevention 101, and I'm here talking about healing by challenging yourself. And I'm talking with Lisa Lockwood, and she is the author of Undercover Angel. Okay, Lisa, before the break, we started talking about how you your marriage, right after your beauty pageant experience. You then got married. So talk a little bit about that.
After the beauty pageant experience, I knew I wanted to go to college, and my mother thought that that would be a way, if I'd gotten a title, I'd be able to go to university and be able to pay for it. So because I didn't take the title, I started researching ways that I could go to college, and I also was looking for a way to get out of the house because, by that time there were babies, and, there was a lot happening and a lot of distractions. So what I did is I started researching branches of the military. And while I was doing that, I was on what's called a delayed enlistment program, waiting to be selected to go in the Air Force, because at that time the movie Top Gun had come out, and a whole bunch of people signed up to get in the Air Force, and there was a waiting list to get in. So
that was a pretty awesome movie.
It was. So I was kind of in a limbo state. So I was working as a waitress at the time, and during that time I met a man. I met a man who was charismatic and passionate, and he was very possessive of me. And at that time, unfortunately, I mistook that possession as him loving me, him having so much love for me that he was possessive and envious if other men looked at me. It got to a point.
And this is very common also, right?
Yes.
So this is extremely common.
Pattern.
Abusive situations.
It absolutely is. And being naive and young, and I was 18, and having this man just shower affection on me and take me out to dinners and to treat me that way, I just thought was a gift. I was looking for a Prince Charming. What I didn't realize, and I guess what I suppressed at the time, is the fact that he did like to drink. And when we were out in situations, I would watch him stare a man down if a man looked at me, or threaten that he would beat them up if, almost come to blows with somebody. And even then, I looked at that as, wow, he really loves me. He's possessive. He wants to make sure that, I'm not going to stray away or somebody's going to try and take me away from him. Again, it was just being young and immature. What happened later on is I did join the Air Force. He tried to discourage me while we were engaged and said, you don't need to do that. I'll take care of you. He definitely wanted a family. He knew what his expectations were from a woman and a wife, and I just wasn't on that path. I really wanted to break free from the environment that I was, not kind of jump from my house into another man's house, but have the self-esteem to go forward and do something on my own. And so he followed me into the military. He came there, and we were married about 2 years later. And during that first 2 years together, everything was dreamy and wonderful. The temper was still there. I would watch him have violent episodes in our house where he would break things and destroy, glasses and dishes. But I just always thought, you know what, he's really passionate. At least he's not touching me. As long as he doesn't touch me, that's not abuse. And again, I just didn't realize. Later,
and fear did begin to grow from your book. You began to become frightened about his temper and his drunkenness and all that.
I became frightened in the sense where I thought, okay, he needed help. He obviously didn't think that he needed help, so I went to a counselor in the Air Force, in the military, and I started asking questions about relationships. And they said, well, Lisa, he needs to be here. He needs to be part of this experience in order to find out if there is an issue there, especially with the drinking. And that was the issue. He couldn't come to terms with the fact that I considered him an alcoholic. If you have a beer every day and you can't go a day without having a beer, you're classified as an alcoholic. But he thought if he wasn't falling down drunk, then he's not an alcoholic. So obviously,
also typical, very typical.
Extremely. So I did the best that I could. In the military, what I would do is I would throw myself into the job. I became a heavy equipment operator. I served in Desert Storm. I drove tractor trailers, buses, trucks, wreckers, tow trucks, and really did well. I excelled so well that I was nominated and I won the title of Airman of the Year for my base. And by the time I was finished with my Air Force career, after 4 years, I was Airman of the Year worldwide for all of the logistics squadrons in the military. So what I tried to do, Susan, is just focus so much on the career in the military and trying to get an education that I would allow myself to suppress what was happening at home, because I was getting so much satisfaction at work. It didn't matter so much that my relationship was suffering a bit, because I guess my needs were being met at another level in another way.
Sure, exactly. And I mean, this is a situation, first of all, it's a man's world out there. You are facing this gender discrimination, and you are doing well. Yeah. You were showing the boys that you could play with them. And that is another challenge that I believe was helping you on the road to healing and becoming the person that you are, because you were starting to see your self-worth.
Yes.
From that. And being a woman over there in Desert Storm, I don't think there were all that many at that time.
No, there weren't.
And driving heavy machinery, that's not easy.
No, and what I did is I carried along my acting as if, kind of the fake it till you make it. As long as I exuded the presence and the awareness and the confidence that I'm going to learn it and it's going to happen, and, you know, it's just a matter of time. They're not going to expect me to be an expert right off the bat. So I knew that everybody needed to go through a training period, but I just needed to show them that I wasn't intimidated. I was willing to do it, and that meant a lot of times just keeping my mouth shut. I didn't share my fears with them. It was just, okay, so what's next? What do I need to do? Believe me, there were incidents out there where I was on the road, and I had a situation where I was driving a tractor trailer through an anti-terrorist barricade in order to get onto the Saudi base, and I had difficulty getting through, and I needed to ask for help in that particular situation. But as it turned out later on, the person who helped me, who was a supervisor, he said, you know what, it took him a little bit long to get through it as well, and he said, you know, they're laughing at you back at the base, but he realized that it was a challenge, and it didn't matter. Laugh away. I did the best that I could.
And besides, those guys did things that everybody laughed at too. You are now one of the guys.
Yes.
That's extremely important tonight, and like I said, I relate to that experience very much, and I know what strength that gives you, setting those challenges, getting in touch with that warrior, faking it until you make it, whatever phraseology you want to use, and then you come away again. It's another building block of strength. So now let's talk about after the Army and getting up to the police department, and at what point did you decide to get out of the marriage, too?
Yeah.
That was some point around that time, correct?
I left the Air Force after 4 years. I moved back to Chicago and started taking college classes. I worked a private security job in order to graveyard shift so that I could go to school and also generate some income on my own. And I also thought, even though I didn't need to work because my husband was doing well in the construction field, he's a foreman in carpentry, and like I said, he really wanted to be a stay-at-home wife. I just felt that this is another way for me to get away from him and, again, build my confidence, because he had a hold on me. And the hold wasn't so much that I feared, because at that point he had never touched me. So I didn't fear that he was going to hurt me, but he had threatened over the years that if I ever left him, he'd either kill himself or he would kill the new man in my life. So I did believe those. I believed those threats, and that was the hold that he had on me until later, where an argument, and I had moved on, and I decided I was going to become a police officer, that he felt truly threatened, and came home drunk one evening, and that evening escalated into something that I never dreamed of. Truly, I was laying in bed sleeping. I was at that time a police dispatcher, a 911 dispatcher, waiting to be hired as a police officer because I was on the list and was just waiting to be called up. He came home from work late on Friday night and stripped the blankets off of me and poured scalding hot Chinese food on my back because I didn't want to get up and join him for a meal at 9:30 at night. Mm-hmm. That was my defining moment. I just thought, wow, you know, our relationship has escalated to this. I realized that it wasn't working, but again, still on my path to become a police officer, how did I allow this to happen to me? And I wanted to repress it. I didn't want to share it with my family because everybody saw me as this confident woman who was going to college and working, as a police dispatcher. And finally, to have something like this happen to me, it blew my mind, and I really just felt I couldn't share it with anybody. I just needed to start planning my escape route, I'm not suggesting this for anybody at all. It was just what I did in that moment. I planned my escape route that as soon as I become a police officer, I knew that was going to be the thing for me to have the courage to leave him and feel completely protected as far as, if he were to threaten a new man in his life and or kill himself, I would just have the confidence that I needed.
And this is really a common thing also that men do to try and keep that hold on you and when you're in that abusive situation. And, it's hard to predict. You can't say yes or no, but it's possible that that the situation could have escalated. That at first it was Chinese food. Who knows what could have jumped off at that point. So that was the straw that did it for you, and that's really important to I love the way the progression of this is. I think it's such an example for people. As you say, this was your path, but on the other hand, people are going to listen to this. Now, Lisa, we're coming up to our another break. Let's hold that thought. When we come back, let's talk about some of the things that you experienced as a police officer.
All right.
So, everybody, stay tuned.
Ask the experts. Call toll-free right now, 1-866-472-5787. And ask our All-Star team to answer your question. That's 1-866-472-5787.
Thank you for calling.
VoiceAmerica.com. After more than 17 years' experience teaching safety skills to thousands of women and men, crime prevention and personal safety expert Susan Bartelstone concluded that by thinking and responding quickly, ideally within 20 seconds, potentially violent criminal encounters can be prevented. Using techniques from many different disciplines and illustrated by 60 real-life examples and success stories, Susan shows how it's done in her new book, Think Fast and Prevent a Violent Crime, How to Respond to Danger in 20 Seconds or Less. Check out www.fightsafe.com for more information. You'll also find information there on Susan's upcoming Crime Prevention 101 personal safety teleseminars. Think fast, talk fast, fight smart, which stress the many opportunities you have to deter or defuse a criminal encounter and how to use your brains instead of your muscles in a fight. Look for the new book information or sign up for Susan Bartelstone's personal safety seminars at www.fightsafe.com today. Talk, talk, talk. That's all we do is talk. If you'd like to talk, call us toll-free right now at 1-866-472-5787. 1-866-472-5787.
That's it.
VoiceAmerica.com.
You're listening to Crime Prevention 101 with Susan Bartelstone. We invite you to share your stories, tips, or suggestions for topics you'd like us to cover, and Susan will address some of these on future shows. Send your story or idea to solutions@fightsafe.com. That email address again is solutions@fightsafe.com. Now back to Crime Prevention 101 with Susan Bartelstone.
Welcome back, everybody, to Crime Prevention 101. And I'm having a wonderful time talking with my guest today. This is Lisa Lockwood, the author of Undercover Angel, From Beauty Queen to SWAT Team. And we just got to the point where she's almost on that SWAT team. We're getting her up there to that SWAT team. All right, she left. She left the Army. She was a Desert Storm veteran, and she now joined the police department, and she's getting ready to become independent from her emotionally abusive husband. Lisa, let's pick you up at that point. What happened in the police department?
I was hired as a police officer, and in the back burner, like I said, I was contemplating my leaving the relationship. So I tried to keep things as much the status quo and to be as compliant as possible during that time with my husband, and just try to keep things as even keel as possible while I was kind of thinking of my escape plan, because I said as soon as I'm a fully sworn-in police officer, I'm going to leave him. So again, I focused all of my efforts on the police department, went through the academy, excelled, and did a super job. By the time I graduated, I knew in my mind, nobody else knew this, but I said, now I gave myself my word that I was going to leave him, and I just needed to figure out, okay, how I was going to present it. And while I was in my field training program as a police officer and on the street, I was in a car accident, and I was rear-ended and put into an ambulance, and one of the police officers said to me, Lisa, we need to call your husband, what's the telephone number, et cetera. And, I was being taken care of by the paramedics and crying a little bit, just, kind of shattered and shocked from what had happened to me. It was a rear-end accident. And then thinking, I knew that I didn't want my husband at the hospital. I didn't want him to comfort me. I didn't want him near me. I didn't even want the police officers to know about him. I didn't want him to be any part of my new life. So when I was released from the hospital later that night, I called him to pick me up, and he had no idea because he thought I was at my work shift. I said, why didn't you call me? And we were on the drive home, and it was in that moment that I had the courage to say, I want a divorce. I said, I didn't want you at the hospital. The relationship hasn't been good. We both know it. We had tried counseling where he finally did come around. It didn't work, and I said that. And it was in that moment that my life completely changed for the better, because he was willing to let me go at that point. He realized that I was a little bit stronger, and I think he also realized as a police officer that I was going to have the backing and the support. So my new life as a police officer basically meant no more marriage, no more physical abuse, emotional abuse. It was over. That chapter was closed.
That's amazing. And I love to hear about those defining moments. You had fully found your warrior at that point in time, for sure.
Yes.
Now, you had a very interesting career as a police officer. I know you helped the FBI entrap child molesters.
Yes.
Talk a little bit about that, because, oh, man, I would love to get my hands on some of those guys.
I'm telling you, and there are so many police officers that want to do something with it. It's just a matter of allocating people to that job and Internet, catching sexual predators on the Internet and getting the specialty and the finances in order to support that. FBI is doing a phenomenal job, and we've got the program to catch a predator with Chris Hansen. What happened is one day the person who was doing the Internet crime asked me if I'd be willing to pose undercover as a 13-year-old girl. He would do the conversations on the Internet, which he was doing a great job, but it got to a point where this person that he had on the line wanted to speak to the 13-year-old girl to make sure that he was speaking to a young girl. So I needed to act as if I was a little girl, and basically that just meant adopting, going back and thinking, okay, how did I behave? And at that point I had nieces and nephews who were that age, so I knew the music they were listening to and what were the interests in high school, and got myself in that mode in order to be undercover as a young girl. Well, it turned out, yes.
I was going to say, this guy was fully aware of how illegal it was. He was really good at covering his tracks.
Yes. They are amazing. What's happening is there's a lot of press. I mean, even more so than when I was doing that in the late 90s. A lot of press was being put out there that these predators are being set up and caught. So they realized that. And even this individual that I had on the line from California, he wanted to find out exactly where I lived. In order to, because we needed to set up fictitious everything, my name. We needed an address because we knew that somebody that's out of state is going to do a little bit more research to find out if the name fits the person at that address, because they even check the local newspapers and go into the archives to find out if police are catching sex predators, to find out, okay, what agencies are doing it, what towns, because if they're talking to a girl in that town, now they're going to be a little bit more suspicious to think maybe this is the police sting and the police setup. So it's amazing, as much as you try to go forward, it's always a step forward and two steps back, because the criminals are aware of what's happening.
Yeah, they're a little too sophisticated.
Some, because we've seen Chris Hansen's program, and some of the people that have been caught on To Catch a Predator on 2020 actually watched Chris's program, and they fell for the setup anyway. So sometimes, whatever it is, the disgusting desire for younger girls doesn't dissipate, and they take the risk.
This guy was actually also his girlfriend was part of this.
That's right. He had a girlfriend who was part of it, and they were interested in taking the relationship into a three-way, and I was in on the conversations, and she even screened me to make sure that it was a young girl on the phone, to make sure it was going to happen. They started looking into booking airfare for me. They were afraid to actually take the step to cross state lines, so they thought, is there any way at all that you'd be able to get away and let your parents know that you're going away to a friend's or a cottage, or come up with a cover story so that we can fly you here? So look at the great lengths that people will go through to do that. They sent me gifts. I had a P.O. box set up with little cards in order to go to shops, girl shops at the mall. They sent me telephone cards in order for me to call them so it wouldn't show up on the phone that I was using. And that made me obviously believe that they thought that they were talking to the young girl, because they went through so many hoops, I guess, so to speak, to try and encourage this girl to meet them.
And I hope that mothers out there are listening to this, and if there are any teens listening to this, please listen to this, because this is what they do.
Yes, and I've got 2 stepdaughters now, and it's all about Internet. This is a new way of life. This is their era. It's connecting. It's the way that they chat, Facebook and MSN, and it's all there. And my husband and I monitor. We have a computer set up in the house. They're not permitted to have a computer in their bedroom at all, no private places. It's set up in a common area where the screen faces the outside of the room. They're not hidden in any corners, so that we can walk by it any moment, see what's online, see who they're chatting to. There are ways to check to find out what websites that they visit. There are blocks to put on so that they don't go to sites that they shouldn't be going on. And even with that, the discussion is so open with us and the children, and them knowing what I did for a living, that my younger daughter came to me and said a 17-year-old boy, now my daughter's 13, just turned 13, wanted to meet her at a mall, and she never even knew who he was, but a local mall, and started to ask her questions. So you know who got on top of that. Mm-hmm. So basically I went through, and I needed to take care of that and nip it in the bud right away. But, I mean, it's a fact of 2 things. We have a great relationship with our children. I've instilled a certain amount of fear in them to let them know what these people are doing, what their purpose is and their goal, and it is to hurt. It's not to befriend or, to date somebody at a younger age, because that's the attraction. Younger girls are attracted to men who are older. So that they do have an ulterior motive. A lot of parents don't have that relationship with their children, where the children aren't going to share that, because they're completely enamored at the fact that somebody is a little bit older and is interested in them, until it's too late.
That's why if we can get this information out there, maybe some teen who's flirting with this idea, just be aware what could be out there for you, and hopefully that will be enough to, dissuade someone from, proceeding down that path.
Exactly. Anybody with children out there, it's as easy as calling your local police department and say, what kind of safety blocks, what do you recommend that I put on the computers in order to, even to track it? Even with safeties on the computers, there's a way that you can track the history of what your children are looking at. You could do it with their permission. You could do it without their permission. It depends on the relationship that you have with the children. But it is your business as a parent to know what these children are doing on the Internet. No computers in bedrooms or basements or anywhere private.
Great. Important information. All right. Now, your next warrior step was to go from police officer to SWAT team.
Yes.
Let's talk a little bit about that.
What I did is, when I was a 911 dispatcher for the department that I worked for, before I became a police officer, I met the SWAT commander, and he knew I was in the military. He knew that I fired an M16, and he said, we do have a lot of training. We have training once a month with the SWAT team. Would you ever be interested in coming out to be a role player with the team? And basically they wanted me to be the hostage or the damsel in distress or, ironically, the victim of domestic violence. So my job was to go out there, and they had scenarios set up in paintball fields and homes, and I would be the person who was, like I said, any of those 3 roles to help them train. Once I got a taste of what that was like, Susan, seeing these guys train, knowing what kind of weaponry that they use, the effects, the results of the jobs that they were on, definitely I felt a calling toward doing that. I said, I could do this job. I don't need to be the role player, but at the time I was a 911 dispatcher. So it was always in the back of my mind that I would become a member of SWAT. I just didn't know when. After 2 years as a police officer, I was still considered a rookie. I became a firearms instructor during that time, and an expert marksman. So, that qualified me in one area, and also due to the fact that my first 2 years on the job, without having to worry about a husband and a terrible relationship, I gave that job 150%. I was making more arrests, and I had more felony arrests than seasoned police officers who had been on it 7 to 10 years. So they saw that I was definitely a woman of action. I wasn't afraid to get in there and get dirty and to handle my beat and respond to calls and just prove myself above and beyond. So fortunately, that was seen by the person who was in charge of SWAT hiring. I sat in front of a panel, and the decision finally did come down when a SWAT position opened up after 2 years on the job. I qualified, and I was put on the team.
And for people that don't know, we're coming up on our break. I want you to talk about just a little bit about what SWAT teams do.
Yeah.
But let's take our break. Give us a little more time when we come back after the break. Okay? And so I know I'm fascinated about this, and I can't wait to hear about this. So everybody just stay tuned.
Have you ever thought about having your own internet talk show? Well, if you said yes, then click About Us. Then click Be a Host to get more information. Or just call Jeff Spinard at 480-294-6417.
Say that again?
480-294-6417. VoiceAmerica.com.
Divorce, child custody, support, and visitation, division of property, attorneys, court. Just the thought of divorce is stressful enough. Never mind the combative, destructive, and expensive process. Is there a better way? Yes, divorce mediation. On Divorce Mediation, Myths and Facts, host Philip Mulford, one of the country's top divorce mediators, will discuss this incredibly successful alternative. Formerly a practicing attorney, Philip will explore the myths and facts about a process that has kept his clients out of court and saved them thousands of dollars. If you aren't familiar with divorce mediation, or your lawyer has told you it's not appropriate for your case, this show is for you. After listening to Divorce Mediation, Myths and Facts, you'll tell anyone considering a divorce, go to mediation first. Divorce Mediation, changing the culture of divorce.
After more than 17 years' experience teaching safety skills to thousands of women and men, crime prevention and personal safety expert Susan Bartelstone concluded that by thinking and responding quickly, ideally within 20 seconds, potentially violent criminal encounters can be prevented. Using techniques from many different disciplines and illustrated by 60 real-life examples and success stories, Susan shows how it's done in her new book, Think Fast and Prevent a Violent Crime, How to Respond to Danger in 20 Seconds or Less. Check out www.fightsafe.com for more information. You'll also find information there on Susan's upcoming Crime Prevention 101 personal safety teleseminars. Think fast, talk fast, fight smart, which stress the many opportunities you have to deter or defuse a criminal encounter and how to use your brains instead of your muscles in a fight. Look for the new book information or sign up for Susan Bartelstone's personal safety seminars at www.fightsafe.com today. News, opinion, your voice counts. Call toll-free 1-866-472-5787. 1-866-472-5787. VoiceAmerica.com.
You're listening to Crime Prevention 101 with Susan Bartelstone. We invite you to share your stories, tips, or suggestions for topics you'd like us to cover, and Susan will address some of these on future shows. Send your story or idea to solutions@fightsafe.com. That email address again is solutions@fightsafe.com. Now back to Crime Prevention 101 with Susan Bartelstone.
Okay, and welcome back to Crime Prevention 101, and I'm here talking with Lisa Lockwood, author of Undercover Angel, from Beauty Queen to SWAT Team, and we were just talking about her adventure sort of on the SWAT team, and just very quickly, what is a SWAT team for people that don't know?
SWAT, it's a specialized unit who handles very, very volatile and irregular calls, anything from barricaded gunmen, hostage situations, terrorist activity. They're called out for the highly volatile situations. And that basically meant, I had many calls where we had barricaded gunmen, hostage situations, domestics, where there were weapons in the home and we needed to set up perimeters, and I had been in sniper position in some of them, and it was just incredibly rewarding. One of the things that you spoke about earlier was breaking into a male-dominated career and having some discriminations initially. And I'll tell you what, because I don't focus on that. I focus on the fact that I was able to do my job, and it was a matter of me being able to prove myself, not even based on my gender. Anybody that's new in a job and being welcomed into a club is going to need to prove themselves. So I never looked at it as, okay, they're looking at me because I'm small-framed, because I'm a woman, because, I don't have the brawn that they do. I thought, you know what, they're looking at me just to see if I can do the job. And I just kind of reframed that for myself. And within a matter of 3 months of training with the team and being a part of it, I had proved myself, and I was extremely welcomed by the team, and they realized I was an asset, and I was used over and over again in different situations that they wouldn't even have been able to do without me. So it was extremely rewarding.
I can absolutely, I see that, and, again, it was like all of these are the steps along the path to that healing. That's what I want to keep coming back to, this message. And you knowing you're good, you're competent, you believe in yourself, that overcomes a lot of the pain and the lack of self-esteem from what came before to that point. So that's right. I'm just thrilled with that. All right, so you were on the SWAT team for how long? And then I know you left the police department. Talk a little bit about that and what you're doing now today.
Sure. I served about 5 years on a SWAT team. I worked undercover for 3 years and regular patrol 4.5 years. So I had a lot of experiences in my police career. It was incredibly rewarding. I only left for one reason. After being on SWAT and working undercover and having all those incredible experiences, I had 3 options. One was become sergeant, or to go back to a patrol officer on the street, or do a lateral transfer as a financial crime detective. And none of them were compelling for me after everything that I'd done. I thought that I'd done everything that I wanted to do in my police career. And finally, one day I had an awakening, and I said to myself, truly, if I had all the money in the world, what would I be doing with my life? And it came to me in a flash. I want to show people, I want to change public opinion and bring awareness that poverty, child abuse, domestic abuse, women getting into male-dominated careers, it is possible. All of it is possible. I'm a living example of that, and I want to show people how I did it, and I want to take them there.
Fantastic, and you are, right? You call yourself a master of reinvention.
Yes.
And you've reinvented yourself a number of times.
Yes, in completely enigmatic paths. Like I said, we already know the background that I came from, and then to come out on the other side as a speaker, as an author, as a life coach, reinvention expert on CNN and CNBC and Fox Business News, speaking to millions of people to get my message out there that it is possible if people just adopt a few principles. I have 6 reinvention keys that I've been sharing, and I'm excited about. I'm doing a teleseminar coming up soon, and just want to show people that it is possible if they just adopt the principles.
And you call it healing, and I call it healing, you call it reinvention.
Yes.
Just for people that are looking for techniques for healing, a couple of your principles, if you don't mind.
Be willing to take some uncalculated risks. This is certainly not the path that I thought I would be living for my life. If you would look at my high school yearbook, it said, Lisa's going to be an actress. I thought I was going to go to Hollywood and work in soap operas. That was my high school dream. And to have it turn around completely into something in the direct opposite, it was because I was willing to take an uncalculated risk and follow a different path and embrace the path. The other thing is to act as if you've done it before. Anything that's new in your life, pretend as if you already have the skill. The fake it till you make it attitude, because what that does is it teaches you, your unconscious, that it is possible just so long as you show up and act in a particular way.
And if I could just jump in here, these are one of the things that can happen to you when you are a survivor is you don't think you can do things.
Yes.
You don't think you could take risks. You don't have that self-esteem, and that's why that is extremely important to just fake it.
Okay if you don't think so. I remind people, Susan, all the time, so think back in your life of something that you've done or accomplished that you never thought was possible. Start all the way back to before you can ride a bike, and you rode a bike, before you drove a car, and what it took to train and to learn and how to do that. Go back to those little things. Write down a list of all the things that you thought, oh, my gosh, I can't wait till the day that I'm able to do that. And you've had those successes. And once you have that, you flood yourself with those experiences. You build your self-esteem, and it prepares you for your next reinvention.
Great. Okay, and I interrupted you in your list.
And then another one that's very important is becoming thick-skinned. And I give people the example of, think of Wonder Woman. Do you remember Wonder Woman with the bracelets? She had danger coming at her. She had bullets coming at her. She would use those bracelets to repel it. If I didn't have thick skin in the military and police and some of the discrimination that happened and the naysayers and the people who spread rumors about me, it's going to happen. It happens in Hollywood. It happens to stars, celebrities. It happens to Oprah and Gandhi. People are going to discriminate. They will judge no matter who you are, even the Almighty God and Jesus. I mean, the list goes on. So if they had gotten through it, you certainly can. It's just a matter of saying to yourself, I'm not going to be a victim, and I'm just going to allow whatever they say dissipate into thin air, because those words don't matter.
And there's actually something that I saw on your website about victim or victor. Know the difference to make a difference.
Yes. That's exactly it. And if we get people acquainted to what it means to be a victim, what are some of the, I don't even want to call them attributes, what are some of the conditions that make you a victim? And it's the things that you say. It's the self-talk. It's the, I can't believe, I can't do it, I can't, it's not possible, using all those, or I'll try to do it, versus victor ways. It's, I can, it is possible, I will do it. Just changing that vocabulary is the first step, how you talk to yourself.
And I see seminars on this order as maybe a second or a third step down the line in terms of healing. You know, we people come from different levels of what they're capable of doing, and as they get these little more steps, and I've done a number of shows on healing in non-traditional ways, and there's definitely a point where I think these kinds of techniques are going to be important. It's not maybe the first one that you try.
Yes.
But at some point in the healing process, these kinds of things are where you might find a lot of help. You know, so ways, maybe for some it's a ways down the line. For other people it might be just the perfect thing. So that's one of the reasons I want to throw this out there. Victim or victor. Know the difference. What are some of the other things that you talk about? Is to be willing to go against the current. Forget about the mainstream and the traditional route. Be willing to go against it. Don't listen to media. Don't listen to people that are not in your fan club and your cheerleaders and your family and your friends who want to hold you back. Be willing to beat to your own drum, and then watch the new friends and the other people that you're able to surround yourself with. Be willing to do that. And my last one, my final one, is to live extreme. Now, I'm not talking about jumping out of airplanes, and I'm not talking about, SWAT or military. Which is perfectly fine if you're at that level. Some people are at that level where they're ready to take those steps, and it's not for everybody. Living extreme to some people may be just, filing divorce papers. It's building your courage muscle. It's saying to yourself, I'm going to do one more thing than I would have done the other day. I'm going to take another step. You gave the example earlier of we try all different methods and maybe one of them clicks. Imagine that you're on a road without the GPS and you need to find something. You don't have a gas station to stop. You're going to drive, and then you're going to find out that road didn't work. I'm going to try another road and another one until you actually find the right one, and eureka, you have it. Keep driving down those roads. Just keep going. Now, I love the term courage muscle.
Yes.
Because that's what healing is. It's building up those courage muscles in any number of ways that you can do it. And reading, and I've done shows on healing through creativity. Okay. Well, I just got so excited I forgot where I was. Lisa, we're coming to the end of the show. I thank you so very much Your website again, Lisa?
It is LisaLockwood.com, LOCKWOOD.com.
Thank you so much for being my guest. Survivors, anyone who's a survivor out there of any of the crimes that we've talked about, please, nothing that happened was your fault. You've got to believe that. You can get help for yourself. You can strengthen that courage muscle. If you want to talk to me about any of my shows, solutions@fightsafe.com. Go back, listen to the shows in the archive. I've got some great shows coming up for you. So you know what? It'll be a crime if you don't listen to them. Stay tuned and stay safe.
We hope you got some useful information and inspiration this week on Crime Prevention 101. Susan Bartelstone invites you to join us again next Saturday at 11 a.m. Pacific Time and 2 p.m. Eastern Time here on Voice America. Have a great weekend and a safe weekend.